Do you still learn React and still do not know JavaScript? So this video is still for you. So this video is the second part of the mini course of JavaScript. What do you know? What do you need to know of JavaScript to start using React? In the previous video, number 1, link you can find in the description under this video, we covered the most important topics for the beginning. It's variable declaration with const and let. We covered the most popular data types in JavaScript, not all of them, but the most popular, and we know that there are two types of variables in JavaScript. It's primitive and objects. So primitive data types such as number, string, boolean, we are passing by value. And we have object data types is object. And this time we are passing by reference. There was a sample with two objects, and when we change a name in one object, the name was changed in the other object as well. So it's how works references in JavaScript. Then we talked about strings. There are three types of strings. It's a single quoted, double quoted, there is no difference, and with backticks. Strings with backticks allows us to do some calculations inside. It's something like templates. We had a few samples how to use them, and in this part of course we will use them again. So we covered objects, what is object, how to create it, and a few samples, for example, we see on the demo page. Also we talked about computed property name, how we can calculate or build a property name by some other value. Okay. Then was arrays, how to save data in the array and get data by index. So in JavaScript we can put to the array any type of data, one array, a lot of different types of data. And we covered two most important parts, methods of arrays is map and push. Also, we covered the most powerful topics in JS from React perspective is the restructuring assignment and rest parameters and spread syntax. These topics we are using everywhere in our code, and if we will see, you see we have the restructuring assignment when we getting props. We using it when we get some value and use hooks in React. We use for updating value spread syntax to pass props to any component. So everywhere, really, with functional React it's everywhere. And it was in the first part. This part we will continue with conditions, loop for only. We already used map and it's almost the same. We can replace them, but anyway we need to know how to use it, because sometimes we need it. Then we will cover a big topic, it's functions in React. Right now everything is function, so it's super important. Then we have classes. In the latest React 17 or even a bit more previous, when hooks were before the hooks time, classes were important in React. Now it's something you need to know, but you can skip it. Error handling, try catch only, forms, promises, and how to get data, fetch. Okay. Let's start from conditions. We will go to our previous project, we already have it, and let's see what we have. We have application with user, and we have onClick method and only return data. So let's add some condition. Why do we need condition? Because in our life we have a choice. If we have a choice, we can use it and do something. Okay. For example, we have a user component and we expect name, channel name, and some other parameters. For example, if we don't have a name, this component is useless. Really? Let's try. We have user, let's add a new user and without any props. So we don't have them, or we didn't receive these props from somewhere. Okay. So as you see, we have this empty part and it looks useless. Okay, how to fix it? We can add some condition and check. For example, if we have name, let's check only this one. We will return this part. Okay, yep. So if we have no name, we returning nothing. But in React we cannot do it. So let's do return null. And as you see, we do not show this component because we don't have data. Okay, for example, if we will put only name, we will have this component, but all other fields are empty. Okay, let's delete it. So with conditions, let's do it a bit more better. So as a part of condition, here also we have boolean variable. Even if we are passing string, it will be converted to boolean. String max, it has 4 characters and it's true. In case we will pass empty string, like this one, it will be converted to false, because empty string it's nothing, false. The same with numbers. 0, it will be false. False from boolean data types, it will be false. Okay. With objects, if you will pass empty object, it won't work this, because of object, it's object. It already has something. Okay, let's a bit more fix it. For example, if we have no name, usually we do it in this case, just return null. Otherwise, now it's better. So we check if we don't have name or any other required field, we just return null and that's it. And then we have our regular part of the component. So it's how we use it. Okay, also we have a second part of this construction with else. Okay, for example, let's check if we have name. Let's add one more field, for example, female. Oh, sex. It's male. And let's pass it. Okay, let's use our destruction assignment. And let's add something like if is male, Let's create a new variable. For example, okay, if sex is male, let's add salute will be, let's assign Mr. Oh, we know backticks, so let's use Mr. and name. Or if it's not a male, else we can expect that it will be Miss, the same name. Okay, and now we can use salute instead of name. Okay. Salute is not defined. Small misprint. Okay, now it's better. And we see that we have Mr. In case we will pass another object with another sex or even without, let's try. We have Miss. I hope it's right. Let's fix it to this one. Okay, so it's condition. Pretty simple. Okay, how we can combine these conditions? For example, if we have a name, as a part of condition we can accept and add some logical operators. For example, if not name, for example, if we don't have a name and we don't have channel name. So if we have name, let's show this component. So let's check if exclamation marks, it's doing opposite value. So if here we have true, opposite returns to false, and if this is false, we don't execute this part. That's why we put name. We check if name is empty, empty is false section, and if it's false it won't be executed, but we need to execute this part for false empty string, and that's why we put exclamation mark, and now it's will be true section and we will execute this section. Okay, let's add some operators, additional logical. We can check if we don't have name and we don't have channel name. Only in this case return null. Otherwise we can put something. Okay, what we have works. Let's comment. So to comment we can use this structure. And if we don't have name. So now we have nothing. If we have name only, we show username but without channel, and if we have two part, we have everything. Okay, the next one, it's AND operator, but what we need if we need OR, some one part is missing. Okay, we use this operator and it means OR. So if we don't have a name or we don't have channel name, then we can return null. Okay, let's hide, for example, name. We have nothing. Let's hide channel name. We hide as well. So it's operators. Okay. This part with if we checking something, we can change with, for example, if we don't have this part, we can replace if with the Ternary operator. How it works? Structure is condition, then it's question mark, and we have true part, something for true, and 2 dots, colon, we have for false part. Okay, it will be short, it was short part. How we can use it? The same, if we don't have name, or even better, if we have name, let's return section with component. Otherwise, let's put 2 colons, we will return null. So we return something. What will we return? We check if we have name. If we have it, we will return this part. If not, we return null. And we don't have salute. Let's change back to name. As you see, works as you expect. Let's add some conditions inside React. It's already React part, but how to use conditions we need to know. Okay, we have our component. And we are outputting something. So let's add the same check for sex. So we need to output a string. Inside this string we check if sex is male. We want to output mr dot, otherwise mrs dot, and after that we will output name as it was before. Uncomment name to show this component, and as you see, it works the same. So this part is a bit more complex. We check, we have the same Ternary operator condition. If sex is male, we output Mr. Otherwise, we output MRS, Miss. And we have name. Okay, let's check second part. If we don't have name, let's fix this part. We outputting some user. Okay, with the conditional rendering, we can simplify it a bit. So let's open our expression React and let's check if we have name. We will output this section. So here it's a bit more complex part. It's from logic, how it works in JavaScript. We check name, and we have operator and. It means all this section will be converted to Boolean part and it will check Boolean parts. If name is true, we will go to the second part and we will execute the second part to check value. All this string is true in general. It means second part will be returned and will be returned this h1 tag. In case we don't have a name, it will be false. Second part won't be executed and we won't see result. So, as you see, we have user for the first part, we have channel and empty object for the second user, but we don't have name. It's another sample how we can use conditions in React and JavaScript. Okay, let's go to the second topic in our lecture. It's loop for. Okay, let's delete these users and loop for. For example, this user has a channel and the channel has subscribing, users are subscribing. So let's add, for example, every month we have some number of subscribers. And it's array. Every month we have some number. Let's put some values, some good months, some bad. And we want calculate average value to know. To do it, we can use for loop. So for, what we need initial value. Let's use let I, it will be 0. We will start from 0. We will continue it. This cycle will be executed until we have items in this array. So until I is less than user subscribers length. So we have 7 items in this array. It means we need to execute our component, our cycle 7 times, and on each iteration we need increase I plus 1. We have operator increment in JavaScript. Okay, now we have I. It will be incremented on every iteration of cycle 4, and now we can get this value by index. Okay, let's create a new variable sum, and inside we need sum, ternary operator, not ternary, let's replace it with this one. We need sum plus value, current value. To do it, we can access by I. Now on every iteration we will have access to subscribers item by index, and we will get this value and we will save it to sum. Now we can console log sum. Let's inspect it. Okay, we have none. Why? Because of when we created declared variable let with let, by default it's undefined, as we know. So we need initial value, it will be 0. And now, as you see, we have value 720, and if we want show average increasing every month. Let's add this part. Let's get sum and divide on numbers count of subscribers every month. It means on every month. User subscribers length. Now we know that we have every month in average we have 102 subscribers. Okay, we have a lot of numbers after dot. Let's fix it somehow. So how to do it? We can put this to some variable. Output average, and for numbers we have method to fix it. For example, 2. Let's output only 2 dots after comma. Okay. Or if it's subscribers, real persons, let's round it. This is a bit more complex logic, so it will be good to put it inside the user component we have. Okay, let's do it. Let's copy this part, put it before return in user component. Then we need to calculate average. Let's add again user. And now we need to get value. We will get it from rest. Okay, and as you see, we have the same average subscribers, 103. Okay, so why did we put this logic here? Okay, let's create a second user, or even better, let's do this user, but for example, it's a new channel and we do not have any statistic. What we will have? In this case, if we don't have statistic, or even to say better, it's empty, we have none. It's not number, so we cannot calculate this value because of we try 0, delete, divide by 0. It's not good. Okay, how to solve it? Usually if we have some strange value in React, we can, when we outputting this value, we can return to conditions and add some additional checking with or. So we output this value. If it's not boolean value true, we can show some default other value, for example this. Okay, we try to calculate average. If we don't have any data, we adding or. and we show some data, default value, for example, no statistics. Okay, what we will to do with the user, for example, if user has no these field at all. Okay, and as you see, we have error. So sometimes we can get this data from backend, and this backend didn't return this field because it was empty. But in our code, we are expecting to get subscribers, and we expect that it will be array, for example. One possible solution is with the structure assignment, and the default value is array. And now we will have access to this field directly, and always it will be array. If we didn't pass it, it will be empty. Okay, but if we do not have such part, we can put this section to try catch. And now we jump to error handling with try catch. So try catch, when we need to calculate some different, difficult or danger part of our code, we can put it to try section, and if something will happen there, some error, we will jump to catch section, and we will handle this error. For example, try. Okay, let's do it. Average, the same 0, for example. All this part we'll put to try section, and catch. We will have error. First of all, let's console log this error. And now in this section we can, for example, to average, let's assign new value, the same no statistic, for example, from this sample. Now we can delete this part. And as you see, we don't have error, at least we don't see it, but in console we see that we have error, cannot read property length of undefined, so we can log somewhere this error, but in our React code we handle this error and show some default value, and everything works great. So we covered this part, and we know how to use for loops, we know how to use try catch, and we know how to use conditional rendering, and here we have the same return to backticks. And now it's time to jump to functions, and we will talk about functions. They are super important in React, in the latest React. Let's start from function declaration. Function declaration is approach in JavaScript when we create a function with a function keyword, then we put name, for example, sum, square, round, brackets, and body of function. Inside we can return something, for example, and that's it. So now we have this function, and for example, in any other component we can use it. For example, let's calculate in our app, let's just execute this function. we don't see anything because of we didn't console this data, we just returned. To see this data, now we can use it inside our component, for example, by wrapping it by its expression, and we need to execute this function, we need to put brackets. Okay. And now we see this data. Hello, it was executed and we have this data. Okay, it's a function declaration. We have another approach, it's function expression. It works a bit other way. So we need to create some const name, for example, average, and assign function, the same function but without name. So now we will have access to this function by this variable. Let's do return average, and let's execute it as well. And we will get some data, and this data is average. So it's two different parts, function declaration and function expression. In this case we don't have a name of function, but the body of this function we assign to variable average, and we can use this variable. Okay, now let's pass some parameters, for example a and b, if we want to get sum, and let's return a plus b. And now when we will execute this section function, we can put 2 plus 2 and 2. We expect to get 4. Yes, great, it works. And we can pass as many as we need parameters, but for example, in case we miss some parameter, what we will get? We get none, because of we cannot calculate a plus undefined, because of when we define parameter, it's by default it's undefined. But as we know from the previous lecture, we can use default value for function as well. And let's, for example, by default we expect all values will be 0. And as a result, we have 2 because of it passed only one parameter. Let's do something else. We have our component user and we have this logic difficult. Really, we can move it to a separate function and pass only this data. It's everything what we need, and we need to return average value. So let's remove it from this part and we will put it to average. Argument parameter, what we expect, it will be subscribers, for example. Now we can delete this. And in try catch, what we need? Average. We need to check all data, and if everything is okay, we need to return result of execution this operation. Otherwise, we need to return only no statistic word. Now we don't need this variable, we don't use it, and let's use this function. Inside, when we have average, we can only call now average function, and the path rest subscribers. Let's check. No statistics, the same what we had, and if we will add some subscribers, we have value, the same average, and now as you see we put it to the separate function. Our component is clear. Okay, and what do we see? We have component and we had functions. As you see, something similar. So all components in React functional, it's just a function, the same function declaration. We have function keyword, we have function name. With React components we are using the first letter uppercase, but in general it's the same function name, and then we are passing props. Here we are passing object and we get all fields what we need from the object. Then we have function body and we have return section. So it's how we are using this value inside. Okay, what we can use with these parameters. For example, as you see, we have sum, and we can okay, let's imagine we will pass a bit more variables. Okay, we want to get sum of all this data. Okay, how to get it? Here we see that we get only first two, but so to add something more, but how many we do not know, how many parameters. We can use, for example, the same rest operator, and let's console log rest. What we will see. As you see, we have array with 5, 8, 2, 9. So how it worked? The same as it worked for arrays and in our component without functions. When we are passing some data parameters to function, we assigned only two to a separate variables a and b, and all other rest arguments previously we missed them, but now we are saving this data to rest. It's a separate variable, it's array. Now we can delete this data, and all arguments we will have we will save to rest array. And now we can, using cycle for, sum plus rest I and return sum. Okay, as you see, we have 28 now. If we will change these arguments, we have 4. And for statistic, we have no statistic. Let's delete this part. As you see, functions are very similar to objects, to components in React, or to be clear, it's the same. And we can use a lot of the same operators, for example, spread or destruction assignment. Okay. And one more part, it's arrow functions. We already covered default value, spread syntax, and let's talk about arrow functions. Arrow functions in Jazz. We know what is function declaration, function expression, and now let's create arrow function. It looks almost the same. For example, const. So we declared variable, and now we assign brackets, arrow and function body. So almost the same what we had here, but we skipped function word. We are getting brackets, we know it's a function, then arrow, and in curly brackets we have function body. For example, the same turn and let's use it in our component. For example, here the same brackets to execute this function, and we have this data. So from benefits, as you see, it's more short, and we can pass the same arguments, for example a and b, and we will return a plus b. Let's pass something. And we have 6. Okay. And with arrow function we can do it a bit more simple. We have function body and we're returning some data. We can skip using curly brackets and put this part. So in arrow function, everything what will be calculated after this arrow without curly brackets will be returned automatically. For example, let's call function reverse. We pass 2 arguments. Now we can use our favorite backticks and return such string. It will be a string. We have a new function. We will return string. We pass 2 and 4, and we get 4 plus 2. Let's apply this approach to components in React. For example, we have a user component and it has the same structure. We have function, we have some props, and we only return some data. It means we can do it with arrow functions, Okay, let's convert this component to arrow function. To do it, we create const user, we assign brackets, and after arrow we will have function body and it returns some data. Works? Yes, it works. But if we only returning some data, we can skip part return and arrow and curly bracket. We will have only wrapper for JSX, and that's it. As you see, we created const user, we passing some props, and we return JSX. That's it, pretty easy. Arrow functions has a lot of benefits using of it, and we will cover some of these benefits when we will talk about classes. But now it's my favorite approach using arrow functions. As you see, we don't need to use function word. It looks a bit more short. Okay, let's wrap up and check what we know and what we learned in this section, in this video. So we talked about conditions, how we can output different data or different view of data. We talked about loop for and covered a few samples. It is very similar to map, and in general we can replace it, but not always. And we talked about functions. Function declaration, expression, error function, and default value if we forgot to pass some data to function. We know how to use function components, especially arrow functions, and we create a few samples. In the next video we will talk about classes. Also we covered error handling, and we know how to use try catch to get some errors. If we have some dangerous part of our code, we can put it to try catch, and that's it. Error will be handled. Okay, and for the third lesson we have only classes, forms, promises, and fetch. So thank you for watching, subscribe to my channel, and soon you will see the third part of this course.